Hey everyone, it's Andrew. I hope you're doing well. Today, I wanted to make a video about this Star Wars game we haven't heard about basically since the trailer came out almost 2 years ago. That is, until today. We finally have new details, new information about this game, which I'm going to share with you in this video. I'm of course talking about Star Wars Eclipse, which, let's be honest, is possibly one of the most controversial Star Wars games that's on the horizon, but in some ways also one of the most exciting. I think it's definitely fair to say it had one of the best, most epic, most dramatic trailers that's ever potentially released for any Star Wars game, but that's honestly also controversial and a bit of a problem because it's a full CGI trailer. Anyway, let's get to the details. So this article from IGN just released, which talks about how Star Wars Eclipse is still a thing. They're still making it at Quantic Dream. And in 2021, Quantic Dream also opened a new studio in Canada to help work on this game and build Quantic Dream's next game. Now, just for some background before we get started, Quantic Dream make games like no other studio. They've made Heavy Rain, Beyond Two Souls, and Detroit Become Human. They're probably their three most notable games. And their next game is going to be Star Wars Eclipse, which has an indefinite release date. Detroit Become Human was their last game that came out in 2018. And it looks like this is going to be the longest gap basically between any of their games. Beyond Two Souls, the game before that, came out in 2013. Heavy Rain was 2010. So they're only like a 3 to 5 year gap between their most prominent games. Star Wars Eclipse, it's 2023 now. It's been 5 years since Detroit, and this thing is still nowhere near being finished. Which brings me to what they've just said about this game and what they've just revealed. So there was an interview with a Quantic Dream developer at Tokyo Game Show in Japan, where Lisa Pence, the vice president of marketing for Quantic Dream, was asked if Star Wars Eclipse even exists. And she said it does exist, and it's just not ready. It's simmering, which, let's be real, is also controversial, seeing as though we know the main reason they released this trailer was to bring developers to the studio and actually get a team working on this game. A little while back, sometime last year, I believe it was, there were talks about how this studio was struggling to actually hire developers to work on this thing because of some of the other issues Quantic Dream has previously been through, involving accusations of abuse and harassment with their main developer, David Cage. It seems by now they've moved past that and this thing is well into development, but she also said one of the big focuses we've had when we announced Star Wars Eclipse was to make sure it was clear that this is actually an action-adventure game that has all the elements that you'd come to expect and want from a Quantic Dream title. So it seems like based on this game is going to be quite different from anything Quantic Dream have actually made before. It seems like they're going to be putting you in control of characters in an action-adventure environment. Detroit Become Human, their last game, is described as an interactive drama-adventure game. I wouldn't really call it an action game though. Action game is more like third-person kind of thing. You're following a character around, you can explore a world, and I wouldn't also say this game is going to be open world. I think it's going to be more, you play through different levels, you can explore certain areas, and each hub or location might be open to a certain degree, but I wouldn't say you're going to be traveling the galaxy like what they're promising in a game like Star Wars Outlaws. But this is where it gets interesting. She continues, has all the elements come to expect from a Quantic Dream title, which is intricately branching narratives and multiple playable characters. So like the other Quantic Dream games, there's going to be multiple outcomes of what can happen, multiple things, and you'll also be playing as multiple characters, which is kind of interesting because if there are multiple narratives and outcomes and branching patterns of what can happen, how does this fit into the grand Star Wars universe? How does this fall into Star Wars canon when different things can happen basically each time you play this game based on who is playing this game, which is where this gets even more interesting because she goes on to say there is no game over. Anyone can die. Anything can happen. Wait, so you're saying you want to set this game in the Star Wars universe where you're putting players in control of their journey and the journey of these characters and kind of the decisions they make between each character, but anyone can die? So even your characters can die?
One must destroy in order to create.
What happens if you kill every single one of your characters? Maybe there's events where that can't happen. Maybe it'll be like the ending of GTA 5. There's kind of like the canon ending where all three of them survive, Trevor, Michael, and Franklin. But then there's also the endings where you can kill Michael and kill Trevor. Anything can happen, and the story sort of continues so that those signatures are still there, which is actually quite similar to previous Quantic Dream games, especially Detroit Become Human, which actually has, I think, 16 different endings. But I still don't understand how is that going to work in a Star Wars game? Is it just going to be fun? Like the Force Unleashed games, for example. They had multiple endings and multiple outcomes of what could happen. Starkiller either turns to the dark side or turns to the light side. But of course, that is no longer a part of Star Wars canon. Disney nullified that when they bought the Star Wars license. No! Is this going to be a similar kind of game where one ending is just going to be the canon ending, the actual one that we think is what happened in the galaxy, and then the rest are kind of just for fun and just for players? Which is something I think Star Wars games lack in recent times, to be honest. I wish Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor had multiple endings and outcomes of what can actually happen based on your decisions in the game. For example, at the end of Jedi Survivor, I really wish you'd had the chance to choose whether you embraced the darkness, whether Cal actually went down that route, or you could also choose to stay with the light side, and that would affect the outcome of what happens at the end of the game. Or just the cutscene, at least, or how Cal deals with the situation. It's just about player choice. Maybe that's the way they're going to be tackling this. Maybe the same thing will happen at the end of each ending, it'll just be a different way of getting there. But I think it's quite interesting that they're saying there's no game over, as in there's no game over screen, or there's just no game over in general. If you die as your character, that character will stay dead, like in an RPG setting, and then you'll take control of another character perhaps. Perhaps your actions will affect what happens to the other characters, who knows? But this is the kind of stuff that's getting me excited for this game, because it's a unique Star Wars game. It's doing something different that really Star Wars games haven't done in a long time. Now, they also talked about this game's release date, and they said one of the amazing things about working with NetEase, which is the overall publisher, I think it's the company that owns Quantic Dream, is that they're not imposing release dates on us. Quantic Dream has always released games when they're ready, and I think the high level of quality that you get when you buy a Quantic Dream game is a testament to the value of that approach. So basically, this thing is still cooking, or simmering as she put it, because they're not being pushed to have a release date, and they're trying to get this game as unique and original as possible, but also still struggling to hire stuff, which I really hope isn't the case. I really hope this thing is well up and running, which it seems to be. It seems to be on track for whatever's going on. I don't think this one's going to fall into the basket of cancelled Star Wars games. That basket is already way too big. There's already too many games in that. There's like 30 or something of them. So many games that got cancelled that never got made for whatever reason. And this one seems like honestly too big a thing. Like, they've released the CGI trailer. They're ramping up production. The marketing budget for the campaign on this game already seems to be quite significant, but then again, nothing's set in stone until we actually see gameplay and see the game and are able to play it in our hands, to be honest. Look what happened to Star Wars 1313. To be fair, that was during a different time for Star Wars. That was during the Disney takeover period, so things were kind of uncertain then, and Disney, for whatever reason, decided to shut down LucasArts. I think that's the way things were going at the time. I think it was a messy period for Star Wars, and I think it was time to evolve. That said, I still miss LucasArts. However, the disappointing thing here is that she said it's too early right now to really give any update on the game, which makes it seem like it's in the very early development stages still, perhaps still in a concept stage, or just getting some initial kind of gameplay going. But one positive thing is that she said we've been doing even more ramping up our expertise in the gameplay arena. Like I said, Quantic Dream have never really made an action-adventure style game. I wouldn't really call their games that kind of game. So it looks like they're really trying to nail that aspect of this game and somehow combine it with elements of previous Quantic Dream games in terms of player choice, narrative, different endings, different characters you can play as, and combining that with a more traditional action-adventure shooter, potentially lightsaber gameplay. A few other things we already know about this game: it's supposed to be set in the High Republic era, and you can kind of get a loose idea of what's going to happen from the CGI trailer, but that said, this trailer released in 2021. This game likely isn't coming out. I'd say 2025 would be the earliest, but it seems like it probably will be later than that. So anything we see in that trailer basically could just be complete fluff. For example, Yoda appears in the trailer during the High Republic era, but there's a chance he won't even make an appearance in the game. And even though this game is still years away, I think it's one we can really look forward to because of how unique it's potentially going to be and do something no other Star Wars game has ever really done before. The fact it's going to give you so many options for potentially how you play, the decisions you make, but also be set in an action-adventure environment where you're exploring locations, you're engaging in combat, but you're also developing relationships within the game, playing as multiple characters, and being given vast dialogue options that affect the outcome of your game makes this thing seem really promising. And the other reason I think we should be hopeful is because this is a Quantic Dream game. Quantic Dream don't really make too many games. They're more of a boutique kind of studio that make very specific games that have a certain tone and a certain feel to them. I'm not saying their games are necessarily good, they're highly criticized, but that makes them controversial and that makes them interesting and groundbreaking in certain ways. This studio, who's basically only made 5 games and only 3 in the past 10 or 15 years, has been designated to make their next game a Star Wars game. And some part of that, I think, is an exciting prospect. I think it's important to note as well that Quantic Dream as a developer has way less developers than most other big title developers that are developing Star Wars games. Currently, according to Wikipedia, Quantic Dream only has just over 200 employees, which is a lot less than I know DICE had when they were making the Battlefront games. I'm pretty sure Ubisoft would have more than that too. So I think we're honestly gonna have to be patient with the release of this one. And now I know this game is already controversial controversial. I know people are already complaining about. I've seen comments about it saying, why even market a game that's years away from release? It's greedy and false advertising. So please let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think of this, and do you think it's actually going to be any good? And if you missed Battlefront 2, just like me, and want to see what the game should have looked like by this point, then watch this video here. Also follow me on Instagram, posting more there, and thanks for watching this. My name's Andrew. I'll catch you soon.